Markets Now is brought to you by the 5-year anniversary of Brevant Seeds. Here's to 5 years of not just winning, but collecting one game-changing W after another. See all of our wins at Brevant.com/wins.
Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rourke with Matt Bennett of agmarket.net. We ended on Friday with livestock to the plus side, grains in negative territory. And Matt, let's start off with soybeans, a very disappointing close. We took out the November lows in the soybeans, so not a good close, was it?
No, it's not what you want to see at all, quite frankly. I think that there's a lot of folks sitting here scratching their heads saying, hey, are we going to get all these beans sold to China or not? You don't really have a good weather story out of South America. No doubt. Argentina's a little dry. Parts of southern Brazil are dry. But overall, your estimates of production down there are quite robust. I don't think I've seen anything under 170. And so you've got to make the assumption that Brazil crop overall is in pretty good shape. So to be able to keep this ball rolling, if you will, obviously you need to see everyone feel good about, hey, we're going to actually sell and eventually ship 12 million metric tons of soybeans. And right now, I just think people are frustrated, because there's mixed signals coming from our government. We don't know exactly what to believe in here.
Let's talk about that, because Secretary Bessent said, I think on Wednesday, that we were going to have commitments of 12 million metric tons, but done through the end of February. U.S. Trade Representative Greer comes in and says, hey, we don't even have a deal. Is that right?
Well, originally, Michelle, as you and I both know, we were all questioning, is this a marketing year deal or is this a calendar year deal? If it was a calendar year deal, it was good news because we were going to get 12 million metric tons by the end of the year. And then more importantly, in the next calendar year, we're going to get another 25. So over the course of 14 months, we're going to get 37 million metric tons. And now all of a sudden, they're saying, well, they've got until the end of February. And so I think people are just like, man, what if they don't get it done by then? Are we going to give them till the end of March? Or, how long is this going to stretch out? Because we all know that U.S. beans are not the cheapest beans on the world market. Brazil has us beat. Their value certainly gives them an advantage over us. But if you look at the trade deal in total, you've got to assume China wants to fulfill their obligations. So we keep the tariffs reduced on the goods that they're selling to us, because clearly with the U.S. being the number one consumer of goods in the world, China is going to want to try to play fair, in my opinion. So let's hope that that's the case. I mean, I'm saying that, with a little bit of a grain of salt.
In all fairness, they have bought some beans, another 17 million bushels on a flash sale this morning. What is the running total that China's bought so far?
Yeah, it just depends on who you ask and how you look at it. The White House has this tracker, and, some of them are putting it at around 3 million metric tons or a little bit below. Some folks have said, if you would total up what they've bought as far as physical sales are concerned, along with futures that they've bought, which I don't know how we're going to put that into the mix. But if that's the case, some people are saying we're halfway there. And so I don't know if I don't have a good number for you. It's hard to get a hold of a good number. I mean, some people are thinking that they're using unknown because they know that some of unknown's China, but that's not how it's reported. So it's really hard to get your finger on it right now, Michelle.
Well, even if you use 3 million metric tons, we're a long ways from getting to 12 million metric tons, even if you extend it until the end of February, right? And then you have Brazil's cheaper beans to compete with.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that from a sales standpoint, and it used to be from a shipment standpoint, you want to get that done before Brazilian beans came online. What are shipments going to look like for us here this year? I mean, that's a big question mark for sure. But as far as sales go, I mean, sales are great. But we certainly want to see those shipments as well, because unfortunately, if something would fall flat as far as this trade deal is concerned, and as you said, we don't have a signed agreement. So that's not having a signed agreement. It's concerning for a lot of us in this industry that sales could turn into cancellations. And so we've seen that game before.
And we have not seen any shipments on the export inspections report from China so far. So that's a really good point that you make. Technically, we took out the November lows here today. How concerning is that for you in the January contract, and can we hold 11?
Yeah, I mean, that is very concerning. So typically, whenever you take this market that had been below 11 for a long time, up through 11, and we went north of 1150. By all means, it looked like the historical significance of $12 after you hit 11, that's something that we had well within our sights, but the market's floundered around here. We never saw 12. And now it looks like we may be subsequent going below 11. You go below 11, it's not a good look for the the market at all. And I would be pretty concerned, if we fail here. So, clearly we closed just below 11 here this week. This coming week is going to be a very important week because bottom line is if the bean market rolls over here, it's got implications on more than just the price of beans. I mean, part of the thing that would support corn, of course, is really strong soybean prices. And so, you look at, for instance, the 26 prices and, seeing beans recently up over 1130, it would tell you that maybe there's some competition there for acres coming. And, if we go and take that price down below $11 and stay below $11, that'd be concerning to me.
Yeah, as far as the corn market, obviously a lower weekly close here, despite the fact that we've had these very robust export sales and reports. Are we just following beans? Is that the problem here?
I believe that's what happened on Friday. No doubt that there was just a lot of spillover pressure there, just kind of a blasé market. I mean, to open the market earlier in the day, Michelle, I mean, one of my clients called me at one time, in corn, beans, and wheat collectively, nothing was more than a penny from unchanged, just a dead market. And then unfortunately, you had selling come into the beans, and we saw what happened. What'd that do? Well, it spilled over into corn. At one time, I thought corn might have a higher weekly close and may have a chance, at closing up or above the 200-day moving average, but it just wasn't in the cards. And I think a big reason for that would have been soybeans performance. But, overall, this export situation is fantastic. I mean, a pace analysis would tell you we're running like 31% ahead of last year. USDA's got us forecasted at 9% ahead. But can we hold this pace? I mean, that's the big question. And so I do think there's plenty of air to be let out of the feed and residual usage bag. And so what do we come down to? If we take exports higher, probably going to take some of those lower. It's going to come down to production ultimately. And I don't know if we make a huge adjustment again this year, but there's certainly a lot of people in and around the trade that feel like we could adjust this yield lower by a fair amount. If we do, again, I think that there's some demand we're going to have to offset as well.
Well, that definitely tees up my next question here. We do have the WASDE coming up next Tuesday. Usually in December, we see no production adjustments. Is it possible we could see some just because we didn't have an October report, or what are you expecting?
I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you, but I'd tell you this, with you not having an October report, as you just suggested, it definitely calls into question, do we need to make some revisions in December? I mean, typically they have October and November that they make revisions. And quite frankly, December, they don't do anything most of the time. This year might be different. I would assume if they see some sort of a production change on the way, on the horizon, if you will, then maybe they'll go ahead and make some adjustments. But as far as demand goes, I feel like there's a lot of give and take there. I kind of feel like they're going to stay status quo for the time being. If they would raise exports again, I've got to think they're going to lower feed and residual usage. You look at this Mexican cattle situation, and clearly with another case of screwworm, I mean, 100 miles from the border tells me they're not going to open that border anytime soon. So exports should stay fairly strong for the time being.
Well, the record pace of exports have not been enough to keep the corn market above the 200-day moving average, as you have mentioned. So you either have to have lower yield, higher soybeans, or do you have to have both?
Yeah, I think that those two things could certainly propel the corn market. The other thing, of course, would be if the safrinha crop is not a banger of a crop. I mean, obviously, that's what we saw last year. There's several things that are contributing to the market being in a blasé mode. But, Michelle, if you look at the world balance sheet from the last USDA report, you'll see that for this marketing year, they're saying that production's up 55 million tons, whereas carryout's going to be reduced by 10. So overall usage would go up more than the 55 million bushel production increase. And I'll tell you what, that's pretty impressive.
Lower weekly closes in the wheat again. And of course, we continue to struggle with global supplies, and really a record crop in Canada announced this week didn't help either, did it?
Yeah, I mean, we can't catch a break. That's all there is to it. I mean, there's nothing that we seem to be able to do to get this wheat market to rally and get some excitement. I mean, you look at the chart, and it looks like we've certainly got a little bit of support under us. I mean, we haven't been below, the recent lows when we were pushing down towards 5 and below. I mean, we hadn't been down there for quite some time, so you'd think there'd be some support under this market at some point. But at the same time, you just keep throwing production at it, and so it's problematic to say the least. And I just don't see wheat market being able to rally unless it gets some help from its friends over in corn, soybeans. So, I do think that if corn and beans would take off on a rally for whatever reason it might be, demand, supply adjustments, I don't know. I do think that wheat could actually post some sort of a rally effort, but I don't think it does it on its own. There's just too many things going against it.
Cattle market sharply higher in both the cash and in the futures this week. Can we technically now get over some of these key retracement and moving average areas and go up and fill those gaps?
Yeah, I mean, you were definitely in a steep uptrend as far as cattle are concerned. Last week we went down, probed down, made a low, and then just kind of shot up like a rocket. And bottom line is for cattle, you do have some gaps up above us. Can we go up and close those gaps? I think it's certainly a doable thing. There's no doubt in my mind that I feel a lot different about the cattle market than what I did, 10 days ago. But at the same time, I guess from my vantage point, I don't see new highs necessarily on the horizon. I think what you've got, is a big money player that's just a little bit concerned. I mean, sentiment changed. It wasn't fundamentals necessarily, it was sentiment that changed because, clearly it looked like our government was kind of going after beef prices and did a lot of damage actually to the confidence of the investor. And so, I don't know that they jump in whole hog like they were before.
Well, thanks so much, Matt Bennett with agmarket.net. That is Markets Now.
You were right.
You were right.
You were right.
Well, you were right. When you choose your seed brand, there's winning, and then there's...
You were right. Should have gone with Brevant seeds.
When you choose Brevant seeds, you don't just win, you get to be right. Don't just win. Talk with your retailer or visit Brevant.com/win to get started.